A small team of Seiko's finest watchmakers came together. Their goal was simple: to create the best of the best. Their desire to create the king of watches gave birth to Grand Seiko. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Gentleman Pursuits podcast. If you like the content that I put out, please subscribe and share to your friends. I appreciate that a lot, and spread the love of watches with everyone around you. And if you're a newcomer, first time listening to this, my name is Ryan, and I will be your host through the horology world. So first of all, you may have noticed the title, and from that little introduction I've done, to know that I'm going to talk about Grand Seiko again. What? I just talked about Grand Seiko Snowflake last week, and we are talking about Grand Seiko again. What's up with that? This year, 2020, actually marks the 60th anniversary of the brand, which is a pretty big deal to everyone, especially for the Japanese. In the Japanese culture, whenever someone reaches the age of 60, there's something called the kanreki, right? The celebration of being reborn or being a child again, also symbolizes the beginning of a second childhood. To celebrate this important day for Grand Seiko, they have released quite a few new timepieces to commemorate the past 60 years, and as the Grand Seiko website said, point the way forward to the next 60-year cycle of Grand Seiko's life. And on top of that, they are also releasing a brand new high beat escapement and also a brand new spring drive movement. So without further ado, let's get into the first watch. The first watch that we have is the SLGA 001, a Grand Seiko diver's watch. From the look of it, it doesn't really stand out that much. This watch is being mentioned first, however, because I really don't although I don't really find the design to be that exciting at all, but it's all about the inner beauty, yeah? So within the SLGA 001, there is a brand new 9RA5 caliber, which is a revolutionized spring drive technology. The new spring drive movement has amped up the power reserve to 120 hours while being thinner than a current 9R65 caliber. This will also be the deepest diving spring drive pro diver from Grand Seiko. Also, I wish I can get into, so before, me proceeding, I want to say that I wish I can get into as much detail as possible for each individual watch, but I don't think I have the time here to talk about it, since my goal is always to keep the podcast as short and succinct as possible. And with such a massive lineup of watches that I want to talk about, time management would be a challenge for me. So if you want to know more about every single watch that I talk about here in this episode, or watches that I've not mentioned that is still in the 60th anniversary series, I will try my best to do a standalone review on every watch, so you will get to know and learn a little more about everything. So yeah, back to the watches. So yeah, the new diver's watch is looking really great. Nothing too fancy with its new spring drive movement. But one thing to concern about this watch, that before you want to buy it or anything, is that the bulkiness of the watch is actually kind of chunky. Seiko's diver's watch usually, or kind of big. They're kind of thick and tanky. So other than that, this watch is a total beaut. Second watch in the lineup, we have the SLG H002. The watch, once again, there is a brand new upgraded movement, and I'm talking about the high beat this time. Grand Seiko really is going all out this time with this 60th anniversary release. So with all these new watches, they release also upgrading them with brand new movements. The 9SA5 is the reference number for the new high beat escapement. One thing I do want to mention as well is that whenever Grand Seiko release a new movement, I mean, of course, there are modifications to it, which are great, but they are not necessarily big improvements. Like by that I mean, it lacks a certain wow factor when it comes to telling people, "Hey, come check out this new caliber," right? But huge but here. The SLGH002 may be able to change that stigma right here, right now. Limited to 100 pieces only, this 40mm watch is looking to send shockwaves through the system. Thank you to Jack Foster and Hobdinky. We were able to take a closer look at the movement and really see the difference. The overcoiling and a brand new type of dual impulse escapement, which greatly increased the efficiency and energy delivery to the balance. And instead of 3 joules on the lever, just like a coaxial movement. The reason why I'm bringing up coaxial movement is because coaxial movement is perhaps the closest to the new, bears the most similarity with the new high beat movement. So instead of 3 joules, there are only 2 joules in the 9SA5 caliber. Rocking a stunning gold case with golden hands and markings on a silver dial. Really classic color scheme. And to be honest, there, just like the diver's watch, there isn't anything too fancy about this watch design. Keeping it cash, even though it's 60th anniversary, the Grand Seiko doesn't want to, go extravaganza with the design, so keeping it cash. And as said before, limited to 100 pieces worldwide and is sitting at a whopping $43,000. If you are a die-hard Seiko fan, this watch should definitely be your top 5 right now. The last watch that I want to touch on is the SBG W263. I wish I can show you what I'm talking about, because perhaps it's one of my favorite, aesthetically speaking. This piece is a little bit special because instead of having a brand new movement, this watch is having a personal makeover from Grand Seiko. I'm talking about the hand engraved dial. When it comes to celebrating a birthday or something, a huge achievement that you've accomplished, you need to find different ways to keep the celebration fresh, right? So there gotta be different ways to celebrate a 60th anniversary. Yeah, so we have a new high beat movement, a new spring drive, and now we gotta have a super beautifully designed watch to top it off. So as I said, I wish I can show you the picture, but unfortunately it's a podcast. So, or you can just pull the picture up, SBG W263, right? So it has hand engraved markings at where you would usually find the numerals, but instead of the numbers, instead of 1 to 12, Grand Seiko sprinkled in a little twist, right? So, and put water droplets like markings instead. The design on the hour and minute hands were drawn as if you were pouring water onto water droplets. So if you combine both picture together, you get a grander scene where it's like someone's pouring water onto something and then the water droplets is falling onto the ground, right? So that's the whole idea behind this watch. One thing that you should know about Grand Seiko is that they are really good at being detail oriented. And most of the time people overlook it and think, oh, Grand Seiko is just a normal brand. No, Grand Seiko actually put a lot of thoughts and hard work into designing their watches. And basically, I'm not even I'm not even gonna deny it. This podcast is basically a Seiko Grand Seiko fanboy podcast. I've been talking about Seiko and Grand Seiko so much and telling people that they're really great, and I'm not ashamed at all because they actually deserve more love. So yeah, so Grand Seiko is really good at being detail oriented, and this SBGW 263, as we can see, with the hand engraved dial and the whole design of the watch, we can really see the designing team putting a lot of thought into it. The white gold and the platinum with a water themed watch just couldn't go wrong, you know what I'm saying? It's cold but elegant, right? It's detailed but not overwhelming. So that is the SBGW263. So guys, there are actually a few more watches that were released along with the 3 watches that I mentioned, but I feel like out of all the published watches, these 3 deserved its own spotlight here on this episode the most. Now, don't get it twisted, I love the rest too, but if I were to compare all of them together, these 3, in my opinion, of course, everything's just my opinion, or 3 of my favorites. And obviously some of you guys may argue with me, but hey, it's totally cool. Different preferences, So yeah, there you have it, a little summary I've compiled for these 3 beautiful, absolutely stunning watches. And most importantly, of course, Grand Seiko, happy birthday.